My pheromones are a 95% match with James's. That's why I'm the longest-lasting omega he's ever kept. He humiliated me, taunted me. You're like a stray dog that can never get enough. Then I ran, and he started searching for me like a madman. Meanwhile, I was lying in some back alley clinic, about to have my glands surgically removed. The alpha performing the surgery suddenly had second thoughts. The cold instrument grazed my scent gland, his hot breath dampening the back of my neck. What are you crying for? Why don't you just come with me instead? He was James's equal, a true rival. I knew this was my only chance. While James was turning the world upside down looking for me, I was chewing on a popsicle, lugging a dirty burlap sack down a little alley. I could hear people talking excitedly nearby. James's family has at least half their people out looking for someone. TSK, wonder who's so important. Heard it's an omega? Since when does the James family have a shortage of omegas? You gotta be kidding. Haha, who knows? Maybe this one has a special talent or something. The group of guys were talking trash when they glanced up and saw me. Get lost. One of them yelled. Get your filthy beggar ass out of here. You're bad luck. I had a suppressor patch on the back of my neck and was dressed in rags, dragging a leaky sack. I looked like some poor beta. I hunched over and nodded, then hurried away, turning into a small clinic deep in the alley. The alpha in the white t-shirt was leaning back in a wicker chair, legs crossed, boredly playing a game on his phone. He didn't look up until I spoke. Hi, I want to have my glands removed. I spent 2 weeks tracking Leo down to this place. I knew it was an underground clinic that would do anything for the right price, even a high-risk gland removal surgery. Leo glanced at me, raised an eyebrow, and said with a streetwise swagger, "It's expensive." Oh, I knew that. Luckily, I had money. I dragged the burlap sack in front of me and opened it. Here, it's all yours. Leo smirked, a corner of his mouth lifting. Well, look at you. Got some real nerve, huh? Not afraid of getting robbed? If I were, I wouldn't have come. Leo tossed the sack aside and went to change his clothes. Fine, come on in. A back alley clinic like this runs on pure skill and nerve. There wasn't much prep. Leo tossed me a fresh set of scrubs, probably the only thing in this whole ramshackle clinic that looked reliable. Change into these. Don't worry about the details. Now that you're here, just relax. The clinic's equipment was nothing like a major hospital's. The only things I could trust were Leo's skills and my own luck. I obediently climbed onto the surgical table. The cramped space reeked of disinfectant. I stared at the light filtering through the clinic window, reaching a hand toward it slightly. The moment Leo peeled off my suppressor patch, the scent of sandalwood filled the air. Don't get the wrong idea. It's not mine. It's James's. Who would believe that a man at the top of the food chain, a man who holds the power of life and death, would have such a merciful pheromone signature? But Leo definitely knew. He was silent for a moment before picking up the scalpel. You ready? I hyped myself up and managed to tear up in 3 seconds flat. I started sobbing quietly, but my shoulders began to shake more and more violently. Leo had to stop. What are you crying for? He asked, exasperated. Don't want to go through with it? Then why did you come? For you, of course. I sniffled because I don't want to die. Gland removal is a life or death gamble, and I was betting my life. The cold scalpel scraped against my gland, and the slight sting made me grunt in pain. Tears streamed down my face like they were free. Leo sighed, tossed the scalpel into a tray, and braced a hand on either side of me, leaning in close. Absolute fear, desire, and the pheromonal signals coming off me. To take down James, his bedmate, someone who knew him and hated him, would be very useful. Why don't you just come with me instead? That was the line I was waiting for. My eyes went wide. Huh? I asked, feigning confusion. Leo stood up straight, his tone serious. Since you're done with your alpha, you might as well be with me. At the very least, I won't make you so miserable you want to cut out your own glands. I thought for a moment, then said timidly, okay. A smirk played on Leo's lips. First, though, we have to wash his mark off you. I agreed. Having a mark washed wasn't pleasant. It hurt like hell, even more than when James marked me in the first place. Back when James's father had me sent over to be his assistant, the first time I saw him, he was drinking, his face a mask of irritation. The room was a disaster. I silently started to clean up, only to hear a sneer from above me. Ha! The old man finally did one thing right. The right thing he was talking about was our high pheromone compatibility. He pushed me down, his excitement palpable. I struggled, trying to explain that I was his new assistant. James just laughed and patted my cheek. What's with the act? Isn't this why the old man sent you? He marked me forcefully. As he bit into my gland and injected his pheromones, my face was streaked with tears from the pain. James was impatient. Don't act like a whore and then try to play the saint. Know your place. He thought I was a spy sent by his father, so he treated me like dirt outside the bedroom and tortured me in it. Just thinking about it made me hurt. I took a deep breath. When I opened my eyes again, the chains James had put on me were finally gone. I was no longer his marked Omega. Leo took me to the studio apartment he was renting. It was tiny, you could see everything from the doorway. These top-tier alphas were all strange in their own way. The Kingston family's internal power struggles were notoriously complex, and Leo had supposedly left home because he didn't want to compete. But there was no way he should have been this down on his luck. Besides, he wasn't really out of the game. It was all an act. James had shown his wariness of Leo more than once in my presence. Sometimes I'd overhear it while kneeling under his desk, other times he'd be cursing him out on the phone in the middle of sex. To him, I wasn't a person anyway. I was an ant at best. He never worried about an ant leaking secrets, and he always looked down on Omegas like me. What do you need me to do? I did my best to look obedient. I wasn't expecting any other kind of answer from Leo. For a dominant alpha, there was only one path with an Omega marking. And under that absolute pressure, an Omega had no choice but to submit. I could be with James or I could be with Leo. But Leo said, "Huh? Do I look like I need anything?" He looked surprised, then pretended to think. "You think my 300 square foot place needs a housekeeper? Obviously not." So he continued with a roguish grin, "Give me love. I'm running pretty low on that." "Love?" I paused for a second, then nodded. "Okay, I can do that." Leo raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" I reached into my beat-up moving sack and pulled out a specially sealed box. I opened it. With every item I took out, Leo's face grew darker. By the time I produced the last item, a small custom-made silver whip, his expression was so stormy it looked like it could rain. "What is this supposed to be?" he asked, his voice tight with anger. But the pheromones stirred up in the air betrayed his desire. I knew it. There's no way an alpha wouldn't be into these treasures. Even someone as picky as James loved this stuff the most. Every time he reached his peak, James would tell me he loved me. So this must be love. I picked out a candle like I was presenting a prize. "Do you like this one?" Leo snatched it from my hand and threw it aside. In 2 steps, he was stuffing everything back into the box and tossing the whole thing in the trash. After he was done, he dusted off his hands, put them on his hips, and met my confused gaze. "You know what? I think I need a housekeeper more. Why don't you just clean for me instead?" He pulled a comforter out of a closet and laid it on the floor. "You take the bed. I'll sleep on the floor." Leo muttered to himself, "TCH. You Omegas are so delicate. You'd probably get sick from sleeping on the floor, and medicine is expensive. Get some rest. Don't even think about trying to scam me for meds." I lay with my head on a pillow of 200,000 cash, staring at the ceiling. Leo was impossible to predict. After washing James's mark off me, he'd returned the money untouched. "You're my person now, so you keep the cash. Consider it my allowance for taking care of you." I didn't really get his logic. But for an Omega to gain an alpha's trust, he had to obey unconditionally. That's how I was with James. I took all the pain he dished out without complaint, just for the chance to learn everything about him. So I had to do the same with Leo. Only by gaining his trust would he believe me when the time came to move against James. I couldn't help but reach out and touch the cash under my pillow. The money had come easy. James had more of it than he knew what to do with. After he'd teased me and toyed with me, he'd always benevolently reward me. I never took the credit cards, only cash. Then I'd use it as a pillow. He called me pathetic. In the heat of the moment, he'd sweep the inconvenient cash off the bed. When he was done, I'd silently get up and pick up every bill, bundling them together again. James would lean against the headboard, rest a foot on my back to press me lower, and mock me. That desperate for money? You're an embarrassment. But then he'd have someone bring me even more cash. He found that having it piled under the pillow could occasionally add to the fun. That's how I saved up, bit by bit. When I ran, I only took the cash. Leo was much easier to handle than James. I tried to help him at the clinic, but he just told me to sit tight in the back room, saying, "It's a small business. I can't afford to hire anyone." Through the curtain, I'd watch him treat patients, watch this heir to a powerful family patiently rein in his temper and carefully bandage someone's wound. After a few visits, Leo stopped letting me come. He said I was useless and just distracted him because he was afraid I'd accidentally burn the place down. So I stayed home, waiting with his little 300-square-foot apartment for him to return. When Leo came back, he'd bring either late-night snacks or some DVDs. Looking at the beat-up DVD player, I'd sometimes feel like my old life was just a dream. Leo seemed so out of place in that world of glamour and indulgence. I even started to doubt myself. Had I picked the wrong guy? That changed the day he took me to a shooting range. We were the only two people in the enormous facility. The elaborate decor looked more expensive than the both of us combined. But Leo, wearing flip-flops, calmly taught me how to shoot. He steadied my wrist, showing me how to aim. "You know what the most important thing in shooting is?" he asked. I nodded. "I know this one. It's your heart." I quickly closed my eyes, but Leo just tapped me on the head and laughed without reservation. "Watch fewer movies. The most important thing is observation." Also, Leo added, squeezing my slightly trembling hand and whispering in my ear, "Don't shake." I didn't want to shake, but your pheromones are leaking out. The unconscious battle readiness a top-tier alpha projects while holding a gun is enough to terrify anyone. I opened my eyes, thinking silently to myself, alphas really are all the same, born to oppress the weak. Then I smoothly pulled the trigger, hitting the target right between the eyes. "Not bad," Leo said, impressed. I was ecstatic. Something irrepressible was pulsing through my veins. Because for a split second, the face I saw in front of me was James's. One day, it would happen one day, James's men had found us. But Leo had lookouts posted around his apartment, so they hadn't made a move yet. I knew they couldn't wait much longer, though. James's rut was coming, and the young master had a nasty habit of attacking everyone indiscriminately during it, except me. This was the source of my misfortune. He despised me, yet he couldn't live without me. One day, Leo took me out. We went to the clinic, but it was only to pack things up and shut the place down for good. He was in a bad mood, his face grim. I teased him, "What? Did your back alley clinic finally get shut down? Where are you going to sell your drugs now? Under a bridge?" He glared at me. "Even if I have to perform on a street corner, I'm taking you with me. You can bang a gong next to me. Don't even think about running." The image was so ridiculous that I couldn't help but laugh. Leo's expression softened a little. He wiped some dust off the roll-up door. "Some things you just can't hold on to." He gave me a meaningful look. That evening, on our way home, we ran right into James. He stood in the center of his men, and the moment he saw me, a twisted grin spread across his face. He beckoned. "Noah, come here." His tone was almost gentle, but James never learned how to smile properly. Every time he pulled his lips back, he looked like a demon crawling out of hell. I took a few steps back, hiding behind Leo. Leo greeted him casually. Well, Mr. James. To what do we owe the pleasure?" James's brow furrowed, his voice laced with annoyance. "I'm here to take my Omega home." The words "I'm not your Omega" were about to burst from my lips, but Leo beat me to it. "In that case, would you mind moving?" He wrapped an arm around my waist and raised an eyebrow. "My guy's hungry. I need to get home and feed him." No one would believe Leo wasn't doing that on purpose. The tension was about to snap. The pheromones from two dominant alphas exploded into the air, affecting everyone around them. James squeezed the words through his teeth. Your guy? I could barely stand, but Leo held me steady. In the end, nothing happened. The men Leo's family had stationed nearby to protect him showed up. James hadn't brought many people with him. He was too arrogant. He thought he just had to wave a hand and I'd come running back. Fat chance of that. Leo helped me onto the sofa and placed his hands on my shoulders, looking me in the eye. I had no idea you were in such high demand. I didn't bother responding. He'd known who I was from the very beginning. But his next words made my heart skip a beat. Don't do that again. What if I can't protect you? He glanced over at the pillow on the bed. My remaining $190,000 in cash was hidden there. That's right. James was here today because I had paid someone to leak my location to him. The only way to get Leo to stop playing house was to force a direct confrontation between him and James. I was done playing along with his quiet life charade. James was even crazier than I'd imagined. He sabotaged the Kingston family's businesses, crushing them with a ruthless frenzy. Leo had no choice but to return to his family immediately. If he didn't, there wouldn't be a family to return to. But on the way back, we were ambushed. A group of masked men appeared out of nowhere, their attacks swift and brutal. Many of the Kingston family members were injured, including Leo. He shielded me with his body, and his arm was grazed by a stray bullet. Blood poured from the wound. The thick scent of pheromones mixed with blood was so overwhelming I could hardly breathe. Thankfully, the attackers didn't finish the job. Their leader left a parting message and then they were gone. Mr. James said you can stay wherever you want, but in the end, you'll have no choice but to return to him. He enjoyed watching me run, only to block all my escape routes, to see me crawl back to his feet with nowhere else to go. But I'm a person, not a dog. Most of the Kingston family had gathered together. When they heard Leo had been ambushed, they were furious. Fists slammed on the table, making it thunder. James has gone too far. That lunatic. He's so arrogant. Does he think the Kingston family is a pushover? Calm down. But speaking of which, while our families have never been friendly, we've always managed to coexist. Why has he suddenly launched an all-out attack? All eyes turned to me. I was sitting next to Leo, carefully applying medicine to his wound. Leo hissed in pain. I fumbled. I'm sorry. Maybe we should let the doctor do this. The professionals were right there, but Leo stubbornly held my hand. I made you my housekeeper to serve me. You're gonna pass off your work to someone else now? Feeling a little helpless, I could only be as careful as possible. Someone couldn't stand it anymore. A hot-tempered man spoke up. Big brother, what are you thinking? The Kingston family isn't short on omegas. Why would you bring back a thing like this? He's nothing but trouble. The trouble himself. I ignored him, focusing solely on Leo's wound. Leo didn't even glance his way, his voice cold and severe. Say another word and you're out. That one sentence was enough to silence the others. In both status and ability, Leo was a cut above the rest. 1 second he was an ice block with a stern face, the next, he was cooing at me gently. Tie a bow for me. Make it pretty. So vain. I did my best to tie an ugly bow. Ignoring Leo's resentful glare, I turned to the others. I have a way to deal with James. The first to respond was the same man from before, young and hot-headed. He snorted. You? Countless eyes fell on me. Suspicious, disdainful, mocking. With one exception. Leo tugged on my sleeve. Noah, don't say things you don't mean. I pushed his hand away and straightened my back, my voice serious. My name is Noah. That was the name James gave me. After he'd brutally marked me, he'd suddenly asked, "What's your name?" He didn't even know my name. My identity didn't matter. All he knew was that I was a cure for the pain of his rut. Whatever, it doesn't matter. From now on, your name is Noah. In his eyes, marking me was a gift of grace. It was pathetic and laughable, but now, standing in the Kingston family home, I felt a strange sense of relief that he'd given me that name. It was a sign that I had once been the closest person to him. I'm the one James has been looking for, and I can help you deal with him. A fiery light ignited in the eyes of the Kingston family members, but they were divided. An Omega with a big mouth. He doesn't know his place. Why don't we just give him to James? Maybe he'll back off. Give him away for free. Are you an idiot? Someone shot me a malicious look and said in a sinister voice, make James trade for him. If he doesn't agree, we can send him a few parts first. Those eyes look pretty nice. Do these people really share the same blood as Leo? We can't be on guard forever. The competition between our families has always existed. Even if we smooth this over, what about next time? I agree. Let's just do it. On the surface, the top families maintained a balance, but beneath the calm, the undercurrents were fierce. In reality, each of them was dying to tear the other apart and rip a bloody chunk of flesh from their rival. Finally, Leo stood up, shielding me with his body. His voice was firm. They've brought the fight to our doorstep. Are we really going to back down? Besides, I have a few things of my own. Leo gave one of his men a look, and the man produced a stack of files. Everyone fell silent after reading them. After a long moment, someone said excitedly, Leo, you tell us what to do, and we'll do it. I glanced at the documents. They were partnership deals Leo had been making in private, a godsend for the Kingston family, which was currently being crushed by James. Many of the families involved weren't as powerful as the Kingstons or Jameis, but if they all united, it would be a massive headache for James. It also sent a chill down my spine. I calculated the dates, it was all during the time I was living with him. So, when he didn't let me go out with him during the day, was this what he was doing? No wonder the door to his clinic was so dusty. Someone called my name, pulling me back from my thoughts. Noah, what's this plan you were talking about? I froze for a second. Then the words I had rehearsed in my mind countless times came out. Assassination. The people who had just been showing a glimmer of confidence in me now looked disgusted. TCH. Just as I thought. He's a low-class amateur. Pure fantasy. He's good-looking. But is he an idiot? Assassinating James? Keep dreaming. James was the sole heir to the James family, with a bizarre temperament and movements that were a total mystery. Few outsiders even knew what he looked like, let alone where to find him to attempt an assassination. But I knew. 3 days from now, at the cemetery in the South Hills, James will go alone. It's the only chance we'll get. No one knew that the cemetery in the South Hills was where James's Omega mother was buried. James's father had been a lifelong womanizer but only ever had one child, James, because that Omega had given him a sterilization drug. It also cost him his life. That's why James's father disliked him but was also powerless. Aside from his flawed personality, James's methods and abilities were formidable. This created a delicate balance between father and son. They were family, but also enemies, with an impassable gulf between them. In 3 days, it would be the anniversary of his mother's death. Every year, he would spend the entire day at the cemetery alone, without any guards. And every year, when he came back, he would lock me in his bed for 3 straight days. He would ask me over and over if I loved him, until I was so exhausted my mind went blank. What is love? James would freeze, then nuzzle the raw skin on my body. This is me loving you. So love is torture, I thought to myself. He would also rest his head on my lap and ask, why aren't you pregnant? Why don't we have a child? Every time he came back from the cemetery, he wanted a child. I don't care what his original intention was for sending you here. Let's have a baby. We'll be a family. James's tears were scalding, burning my legs. I just found it ridiculous. I had told him clearly that I was originally sent to be his assistant. I grew up in an orphanage funded by the James family. After I presented, everyone took a test. My results were the best, and James's father took me in. That thin test report showed that my phenomenal compatibility with James was 95%. James's father didn't tell me that. He just had me learn all sorts of things and then told me, you're outstanding. Go and help James. I was so naive back then. I didn't know that a pawn would never earn anyone's respect. I was just grateful for the opportunity and believed I could do anything to repay the James family's kindness. After such a humiliating start, after days and months of shame and torment, James wanted to have a family with me. He could go to hell. The Kingston family didn't really believe me, but they listened to Leo. And after a long silence, Leo made his decision, firm and resolute. We do it. At worst, it meant stationing a few more men along the route I'd mentioned. Even if it failed, there would be no major losses. But if it succeeded, it would be a monumental victory. Leo handpicked the team and created a detailed plan with clear roles. And on the day of the operation, Leo went himself. He had me load his magazines, and before he left, he placed a kiss on my forehead. Wait for me to come back. It was the most intimate we had ever been. I often wondered why Leo never marked me. Was he disgusted by me? But if he was, why did he let me sleep in the bed while he took the floor? Why did he cook for me? Why did he keep the other Kingston family members away from me? Alphas were so hard to figure out. Luckily, I didn't dwell on it. All day, a strange sense of dread gnawed at me. My heart was pounding so fast I felt like I was going to die. I clutched my anxious heart and tried to convince myself, it's okay. Whether it works or not, there will be other ways. Unfortunately, my gamble failed. At 11 o'clock, Leo returned under the cover of darkness, reeking of blood. He staggered toward me but collapsed before he could reach me, kneeling on the floor and sighing in my arms. The mission failed. It started perfectly. James went to the cemetery alone, just as he always did. The Kingston family had cleared the area beforehand and were sure of victory. But at the last moment, James's men appeared out of nowhere and annihilated the Kingston family's main force with overwhelming power. Because Leo was there that night, his rivals for power in the family had also gone, not wanting to be outdone. They ended up dead. Leo got lucky and made it back alive. My luck, however, was not so good. With such a disaster, the Kingston family wanted to tear me limb from limb. By the time Leo woke up and rushed over, I was hanging in an abandoned warehouse, my body a mess of torn flesh and exposed bone. They were screaming about burning me alive but were suppressed by the powerful pheromones Leo released, forcing them to cut me down. Leo was still wrapped in bandages. He had run so hard that his wounds had reopened, staining the white gauze with spots of blood. I reached up and touched them, frowning. You alphas, you're all disgusting. His pheromones made every cell in my body scream the same signal. Submit. But I didn't want to. Leo held me tight. Finally, his lips moved, and he managed a single, I'm sorry. After this whole ordeal, the Kingston family was in ruins, its power greatly diminished. Now only Leo could manage the situation. But that didn't mean he could protect me. Leo, even though you brought him back, we need to have a resolution. We've received a message from James. He specifically asked for him. You stopped us from killing him before, but now we have to give him to James. We can't afford to provoke him any further. Leo refused. The back and forth dragged on for 7 days. Every night, he would kneel by my bed, feeding me medicine, staring at my wounds, and apologizing over and over. I accepted it all in silence, not saying a word to him. I had figured it out long ago. The only loser in this game was ever going to be me. Did an impromptu assassination really require Leo to go in person? That failed mission had successfully eliminated all of his internal rivals. I laughed, my voice hoarse. Leo, give me to him. I gently wiped a tear from the corner of his eye and, mimicking him, placed a kiss on his forehead. Don't make this any harder. Whether it was an act or genuine, just stop looking at me with that pitying gaze. You don't deserve to. I was delivered to James like a gift. I never expected him to choose the same place where we first met. I walked in slowly, taking in the decor, which hadn't changed at all. But my state of mind was completely different. Back then, I was full of hope, thinking I could make something of myself by James's side. I was also nervous. The notoriously ruthless Mr. James couldn't be easy to get close to, right? Back then, he reeked of alcohol, his eyes filled with gloom. I had imagined what our reunion would be like. Furious, volatile, twisted. But I never imagined this. Defeated. James's eyes were closed as he leaned back on the sofa. Hearing my footsteps, he spoke. You're back? It was an uncharacteristically calm moment. In all these years, James rarely had moments of such quiet. Scattered beside his hand were thin sheets of paper. He casually brushed them aside and beckoned to me. Come sit. He looked exhausted. As soon as I sat down, he familiarly draped himself over my shoulders, sniffing deeply. You really did wash off my mark, he said in a muffled voice. He pulled open my collar, exposing my vulnerable gland to the air. He placed his index finger on it, tracing it gently. The scent of sandalwood in the air grew stronger. I thought he was going to bite down right then and there, trapping me by his side forever, turning me into a pet that was neither human nor dog. But all he asked was, did it hurt? Did it hurt? Leo didn't even use anesthesia. It hurt like hell. But compared to what James had done to me, it was nothing. No. James laughed silently. Then suddenly his hand shot out and clamped around my neck. He slammed me against the back of the sofa and whispered in my ear, "What about the surgery back then? Did that not hurt either?" My heart stopped. James savored my helpless expression, a corner of his mouth lifting. Did killing our child not hurt either? He let go, his hand sliding down to my chest. Noah, don't you have a heart? Of course Noah didn't have a heart. My name wasn't Noah. The orphanage director gave me a name. He called me Hope. I remember the director stroking my head and praising me with a smile. Our little Hope is the smartest. You're sure to have a bright and hopeful future. I let him down. The moment I suspected I might be pregnant, I told James's father. It was simple. I didn't want the baby, and I didn't want James to know. James's father didn't want someone like me bearing the family's bloodline either, so he arranged the surgery for me immediately. After it was over, he told me coldly, I can send you away. His initial plan was to use me as a spy, but James had turned me into his private property. Not only was I useless, but I had also become the apple of his eye. James's concern for you is excessive. You can't stay by his side any longer. Naturally, I cooperated fully with his father's plan. I didn't take a single one of the expensive gifts James had given me, only the $200,000 in cash. But James's father never actually intended to send me away. He had people set up to kill me on the road. But I'm smart. I escaped. Like I said, I had studied hard in all my classes, originally to help James, but in the end I helped myself. Are you going to kill me? I pushed James's hand away, trying to break free, but my wounds hadn't healed yet. Every movement was agonizing. James, if you're going to kill me, just get it over with. I gave up struggling. There was no escape anyway. James gripped my chin, forcing me to look at him, and demanded, Why? Why didn't you tell me? He forced you, didn't he? You should have told me. I could have protected it. You knew how much I wanted him. James started talking to himself, giving me no room to argue. I wanted to say, no, I was the one who didn't want it at all, but then I heard James say something else. It's okay. We can have another child. No one will stand in our way anymore. What did he mean by that? A terrible thought flashed through my mind. I'd heard at the Kingston family home that James's father hadn't been seen recently. His whereabouts were unknown, and James was now in complete control of the family. So James had made his move? My gaze shifted, and I suddenly noticed the things James had swept onto the floor. They were bloody photos, blurry but terrifying. James suddenly hugged me tight. Why are you shaking? Don't be afraid. He kissed me frantically, murmuring, Don't be afraid, Noah. I would never do that to you. I managed to force a question through my teeth. What did you do to your father? James answered nonchalantly, Oh, he's dead. He pulled his lips into a smile. I did it myself. It took all day to cut him up. There was so much blood, just like what he did to my mother. He looked like he was remembering something amusing. He was delusional enough to fight back, but his pheromones were so weak. He was terrified into submission by mine. He laughed until tears came to his eyes, then spoke with all the clumsy tenderness he could muster. No one will ever stop you from having my children again. I know he forced you. Don't be afraid. It won't happen again. We are a family now. James had gone insane, but he didn't see it, and he wouldn't allow anyone to defy him. He took control of the family with lightning speed, eliminating anyone who questioned his father's disappearance. He was bloodthirsty, yet he would change into clean clothes before entering the bedroom to hold me. Why are you sitting on the floor again? Aren't you cold? My world had shrunk to this single room. The floors were covered with thick carpets, and bars had been installed outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Every day, I watched the daylight fade, and every night, I endured James's relentless ferocity. James was in a good mood today. Afterward, he held me with a rare warmth. There should be our child in here by now, right? His voice was full of hope. But unfortunately for him, that would never happen. Before returning to James, I had Leo do one last thing for me: inject me with a drug that would make me permanently sterile. Lying on that medical bed, it felt just like the first time I'd walked into his little clinic. Only this time, my face was a mess from crying, and I never heard him ask, "What are you crying for?" I rested obediently in James's arms. Feels like when I was pregnant before. I'm not sure. We should have a doctor check tomorrow. James was ecstatic, asking me again and again. Really? Of course it's fake. Not only crazy, but stupid too. But not completely stupid. He didn't take me to a hospital. Instead, he arranged for a doctor to come to the house. Everything happened under his watchful eye. Congratulations, you're definitely pregnant. However, the patient is very weak and will need nutrient injections. The doctor was about to give me a shot when James stopped him. Suspicious. Are you sure? No tricks. The doctor sighed and turned to him. Then I won't give the shot. But if you lose the baby, the suffering will be much worse. James panicked and quickly let go, his face showing the innocence of a child. Okay, give it. Give him the shot. In that split second, I got what I needed. From the doctor's drooping sleeve, a potent poison personally concocted by Leo slipped into my hand. A tiny sip was enough to kill a top-tier alpha. All I had to do was trick James into drinking it. James was cautious, and I never found an opportunity. After 2 weeks on a special diet, one day I threw up on him. He didn't get angry. Instead, he immediately cleaned me up and gently patted my back.
I'm sorry, sweetheart.
This is hard for you, but you have to eat for the baby. I buried my head in his shoulder and mumbled, "Someone is trying to harm me. I had a dream last night. I dreamt your father was trying to kill me. He said he would never let me go, even in death." James laughed. "Don't be dramatic. It was just a dream. No one would dare harm you." He personally scooped up a spoonful of soup and brought it to my lips, coaxing me to drink. I held the poisoned soup in my mouth and kissed James without hesitation. Even if I die, I'm taking James with me. Leo's work was always top-notch. The poison took effect quickly. My limbs felt like they were being crushed to pieces by a steamroller. As I slid to the floor, James held me in a death grip. Even as he lost consciousness, he refused to let go. "Noah, you don't die." The last thing I saw was James's face, covered in sweat, with tears of blood streaming from his eyes. We were both in agony. I had been in pain so many times, but this was the only time I did it willingly. How wonderful. All the pain was finally ending. James and I were rushed to the hospital. I survived. The first person I saw when I opened my eyes was Leo. He stood quietly by my bed and praised me. "You really are something else." I smiled back. Likewise, before Leo sent me back to James, I'd had him leak a piece of information. The truth about how James's father had tried to get rid of me. The intention was to sow discord, but also to give me a chance to survive. It worked better than we could have imagined. Not only did I survive, but I was once again by James's side. He even got rid of several of his own family members for my sake. He was so arrogant and conceited that he ignored the dissent growing within his own family. In the end, Leo was able to turn them, working with them from the inside and out to create the opportunity for me to poison him. Where's James? The poison had been diluted. Neither of us drank much. If even I was saved, there was no way James was dead. His family took him away. Leo's voice was full of regret. We really did want to kill him, but his family intervened. They drugged him. Now he's completely lost his mind. James had killed many of their relatives. Now that he was in their hands, his fate would be worse than death. I watched the sky outside the window slowly brighten, and just like when I was a child in the orphanage, I hugged my knees. The sun's coming up. My shadow stretched long across the wall. Leo stood within that shadow and nodded. Yeah, it is. Where will you go? I spent a month recovering in the hospital. It was the most peaceful time of my life. I didn't have to see anyone, and I no longer had to sleep on a pillow of money. Finally, carrying my old, tattered sack, I told Leo, I want to go to the ocean. Back when James's father had planned my escape, he had set up multiple destinations to throw James off my trail. Vast grasslands, bustling cities, romantic seas. I had never been to any of them. I never got the chance. But this time I finally did. Leo stood in front of me, silent. After a long moment, he ran a hand through his hair in frustration and grabbed my wrist. Stay with me. Ridiculous. He never marked me back then because I was just a bargaining chip to use against James. He sold me out without a second thought after I gave him my plan, using James to clear out all the obstacles to his own power. I told you all alphas are that shameless. The one thing that made Leo slightly better than James was that he valued his own life. So he wouldn't force me to stay, and I didn't have a deep-seated grudge against him. Leo retained a final shred of decency and agreed to send me away. Let's just call it a tribute to the time we spent together, a bond that could almost be called family. Before I left, I returned the gun Leo had secretly slipped into my pocket. I never wanted to touch something like that again. He taught me how to shoot, but he never asked if I wanted to learn. I never wanted to think about this life of bloodshed again. I walked forward without looking back and waved. Goodbye, Leo. And for the record, my name is Hope. I don't want a last name. Just hope. The road ahead is bright.